Hello everyone! Today we're going to travel back in time to the early 20th century in India. Now imagine a place with so many different languages, different traditions, and different communities, all living under one single colonial rule. So the big question is, how did all these diverse people come together to challenge one of the world's mightiest empires? Well, the answer is a powerful feeling called nationalism. And in this explainer, we are going to explore the story of how this feeling grew into a nationwide struggle for freedom.
So here's how we'll walk through this incredible story. First, we'll look at the rise of Satyagraha, which was Mahatma Gandhi's unique idea of nonviolent protest. Then, we'll see how this idea sparked the massive non-cooperation movement. After that, we'll explore the demand for Purna Swaraj, or complete independence. And finally, we will listen carefully to the many different voices that made up this freedom struggle.
All right, so our story really starts right after the First World War. Now, for many people in India, the end of the war was supposed to bring some relief, maybe even more freedom, but that's not what happened. Instead, it was a time of great difficulty and growing anger. Just look at what people were going through. Prices for everyday things nearly doubled, making life incredibly hard. The British government also increased taxes to pay for the war. In villages, men were forcibly taken to join the army. And as if all that wasn't bad enough, the crops failed, and a terrible flu epidemic spread across the country, killing millions of people. It was in this time of immense suffering that a new kind of leadership emerged. And that leader was, of course, Mahatma Gandhi. He came back to India in 1915 with a completely new idea. He called it Satyagraha. Now, this wasn't about just sitting back and accepting things. No, it was an active, powerful form of protest based on truth and a complete refusal to use violence. The core idea was simple. If your cause is true and just, you don't need to use force to fight your oppressor. In his own words, Gandhi called it soul force. Think of it as a weapon, but a moral and spiritual one. The fight was not with fists or guns, but with the strength of your own truth and your own conscience. He believed that this path of nonviolence, this dharma, could unite all Indians.
And, this was not just a theory. Gandhi put it into action right away. In Champaran, he stood with the peasants who were being exploited by the plantation owners. In Quetta, he supported farmers whose crops had failed. And in Ahmedabad, he joined the cotton mill workers in their fight for better conditions. These small but important victories showed people that his method could actually work.
But just as this new hope was spreading, the British government came down hard. They passed something called the Rowlatt Act. This law was shocking. It gave them the power to arrest any political activist and keep them in jail for 2 years, without even a trial. For Indians who had supported Britain in the war, this felt like a deep betrayal.
The reaction across India was immediate and massive. Gandhiji called for a nationwide hartal, which is a strike, and the whole country seemed to come to a halt. Shops closed, rallies were organized. You saw huge processions like this one becoming a common sight. It was a powerful and peaceful show of national unity and anger.
But the British response was brutal. On April 13, 1919, a large but peaceful crowd of people gathered in a park in Amritsar called Jallianwala Bagh. A British officer, General Dyer, took his troops, blocked the only exit, and ordered them to fire on the unarmed men, women, and children. Hundreds were killed. The news of this horrific massacre sent shockwaves of horror and anger across the entire nation.
The Jallianwala Bagh massacre really was a turning point. It proved to many that a much larger, more organized struggle was needed. At the same time, Mahatma Gandhi saw a chance to bring Hindus and Muslims closer together by supporting the Caliphate issue. This was important to Indian Muslims, and by joining forces, a powerful alliance was formed. This set the stage for the very first truly nationwide movement, the non-cooperation movement.
So what was the plan? Well, it was quite simple but very powerful. The idea was that British rule in India only worked because Indians were cooperating with it. So, if everyone just stopped cooperating, the whole system would collapse. People were asked to give back any titles the government had given them, and to boycott everything British, from the civil services and schools to all foreign goods.
The boycott of foreign goods became a huge symbol of the movement. You could see massive bonfires where people would burn imported clothes. This was a powerful statement that India wanted to be economically independent, and it had a real effect. The import of foreign cloth dropped by half, and Indian handlooms and textile mills got a huge boost.
But the movement unfolded very differently in different places. In the towns and cities, it was the middle class, students, lawyers, teachers who led the way. But after a while, the movement slowed down there, mainly because there weren't enough Indian schools or courts to go to instead. Out in the countryside, though, peasants and tribal people joined in with huge energy. But they had their own ideas about what Swaraj or freedom meant to them.
And this brings us to a very sad and important moment. In 1922, in a place called Chowri Chowra, a protest turned violent, and a police station was attacked. For Mahatma Gandhi, this was a great shock. His entire movement was based on non-violence. He felt that the people were not yet ready for a truly peaceful struggle, so with a heavy heart, he made the difficult decision to call off the entire movement.
After the non-cooperation movement was called off, there was a period of calm, but also a lot of debate. Some leaders in the Congress Party felt they should try a different strategy. But there was also a younger group of leaders who were becoming very impatient. They didn't want to just reform the British system, they wanted complete and total freedom.
This feeling of impatience really exploded in 1928 when the British sent over something called the Simon Commission. Now, this was a committee that was supposed to decide on India's political future. But here's the thing. It was made up entirely of British members. Not a single Indian was included. The insult was felt across the country, and wherever the commission went, they were greeted with protests and loud shouts of "Go back, Simon!"
This wave of protest led to a major decision. In December of 1929, at the Congress session in Lahore, a historic resolution was passed. The goal of the freedom struggle was no longer just more rights, it was now Purna Swaraj, complete independence. And it was decided that January 26, 1930 would be observed as India's Independence Day.
But declaring independence and achieving it are two very different things. Mahatma Gandhi knew that he needed to find an issue that connected with every single person in India, rich or poor, and he found it in something very simple: salt. The British government had a tax on salt, which everyone needed to live. By challenging this tax, Gandhi was challenging the very foundation of British rule, and so he began his famous Salt March.
Just think about the scale of this. Gandhi and his followers walked for 240 miles, all the way from his ashram in Sabarmati to the coastal town of Dandi. The journey took 24 days, and as they walked, more and more people joined them. It became a huge event that captured the attention of the entire country and even the world. When he finally reached the sea, he broke the law by simply picking up a lump of salt.
That one simple act set off a wave of defiance across India. People everywhere started making their own salt and breaking other unfair colonial laws. This was the beginning of the civil disobedience movement. The government, of course, reacted with force. Peaceful protesters were attacked, and more than 100,000 people were arrested and put in jail.
Now, we've talked a lot about unity in the struggle against the British, but it is very important to understand that the idea of Swaraj, or freedom, meant different things to different groups of people. Everyone wanted freedom, but their vision of what a free India would look like was not always the same.
Let's just have a look at this. For the rich peasants, Swaraj meant fighting against the high taxes they had to pay. For the poor peasants, it was a hope that they wouldn't have to pay rent to the landlords. For business owners, freedom meant an end to the British policies that harmed their businesses. For factory workers, it was a simple demand for better wages. And for the thousands of women who took part, it was a form of service to the nation.
And because of these different hopes, achieving perfect unity was a challenge. For example, the Dalit community, who had faced centuries of oppression, saw political power as the key to their freedom. Their great leader, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, asked for separate electorates for Dalits, so their voices could be truly represented. At the same time, many Muslim leaders were worried that in a free India, their culture and identity might be lost in a Hindu-majority country, and this created some distance and mistrust.
So, to create a feeling that everyone belonged to one nation, leaders used the power of culture. The idea of India as a mother figure, Bharat Mata, became a very powerful symbol. People wrote songs, collected old folk tales, and reinterpreted history to create a sense of a shared past. But sometimes, when these symbols used Hindu imagery, it made people from other communities feel a little bit left out.
So, as you can see, the story of India's freedom struggle isn't just one single story. It's more like a beautiful, complex fabric woven together from the threads of many different stories, of peasants and workers, of different communities and regions. It was a nation of many voices, all crying out for freedom. And this history leaves us with a very important question that is still relevant for us today. In a country with so much amazing diversity, what does it really mean to build unity?